Well, as science struggles to contain the latest strain of COVID-19, the Omicron variant, they're keeping a wary eye on what might come next. For perspective on that, we sat down with Purdue virologist Dr. Richard Kuhn, who led a team of researchers that was the first to map the Zika virus back in 2016.
In the case of Zika, West Nile, there's a vector that does it. In the case of COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2 as we call it, humans are the vector. They are easily transmitting the virus. The virus moves with basically droplets in your breath. And so it is a very contagious virus and one that's difficult to interrupt that transmission cycle.
Dr. Richard Kuhn shared his expertise with the National Vaccine Advisory Committee on COVID variants last June. He says Purdue researchers are working on new systems to deal with future outbreaks. He says nearly 90% of COVID infections on Purdue's campus right now are the Omicron variant, and he says each one of them is a little incubator for growing virus.
And when you grow the virus has a natural tendency to change, okay? Most of the time, those changes are not good for the virus. But sometimes they are good for the virus. They allow the virus to grow better in that particular host. And so, will this continue forever or a long time? We don't know. The one thing that we do know is that if we want to control the virus, we want to limit the number of times it's going to make copies of itself.
As it changes, the virus seeks ways to continue living and infecting new hosts.
If you cause long-term illness, is that better for the virus? Well, maybe, because you'll be in your host for a long period of time. So we don't know what the next version is going to be, but it will be something that will grow, that will be better than Omicron.
From the virus's perspective.
From the virus's perspective, yeah. It may not be better, maybe better from our perspective too, but then again, it may not be.
Which is why limiting the virus's ability to spread is the key to controlling it. One day, perhaps decades from now, the COVID pandemic will be the subject of history when he considers it from a vantage point 50 years from today. Kuhn thinks it'll be a story not of science, but of society.
Our science came together pretty well, and our tools, although somewhat limiting, our tools are there. We really could make a big dent in this thing. It's people that we couldn't convince about the safety and the importance. And it's not about whether you have rights and you don't want to be protected against that. It's not what this is about. It's about us. You take the vaccine not only for you, but you take the vaccine to protect others who may be immunocompromised, who have other conditions. And so it's easy to say, well, kids are not going to get sick. You don't know that. You don't know what conditions they have. They may not know what conditions they have. And so that's why it's important for the community to get vaccinated. It's about the community and not the individual.
And the next iteration of the virus could really like kids.
Right. That is absolutely true.